I've been collecting a lot of stuff recently. Games across multiple generations, multiple consoles. But why am I doing that? Let's dive in and talk about it. Welcome back to this week's vlog. You'll have seen that we put out a vlog recently where Saunders had went through the games and cards, etc., that he had been picking up and collecting for some really interesting places. Like, I wouldn't have thought for a moment that you could have found stuff like that in an antique shop, but somehow he managed it and he got some really, really good pickups. So go check that video out. But after this one, though, don't swipe away. So yes, as I've suggested here, we're going to talk about the things I'm collecting and why off of the back of his video. And the way I've been approaching collecting recently, it hasn't changed an awful lot, but I've got myself a little bit of clarity about the goals that I've set myself for collecting and the reasons why. So you may have seen that we've done a video previously around some tips around getting started. You've got to work out, what it is you want to collect and what it is you're after. So you should check that out on the tube because we actually really enjoyed making that. That was a lot of fun. So after having that conversation, I think I came up with a couple of things and then sort of like thought about it a bit more and more. And we've now landed into the situation we're in now where I have these two pillars that we are collecting and that we're going for. We're going to have a bit of chat. We're going to actually go on a few hunts to see what it is that we can find. We're going to be upgrading the storage situation in here as well. I think I'm going to try and get myself some extra shelves so that shelf counter can just keep on rising. Stay tuned for a future video on that one. Now, gaming has been a massive part of my life since I was young. I distinctly remember being gifted a PS1. Actually, it's a PS1 that I still have to this day, which I managed to dig it out from storage before I moved into the place where I am currently. It was a little bit worse for wear. It doesn't actually look too bad these days. The only trouble is that the disc tray doesn't quite always close first time, but this is my first ever console that does hold a special place in my heart. So I do have to hope those cables are in there somewhere. Though I do have a PS2 that is hooked up to the television, so I mean, I can still play all the games that I want to play. So yeah, I remember I was given a PS1 and I was given my grandfather's old television. He got a new TV for his living room and he gave me his old CRT at the time, and I remember it being like the coolest experience ever, being able to put one of these like in my bedroom. I was like 6 or 7 years old and I had this full setup. Like, I thought this was amazing, right? But there was like something in me that just kind of woke up when that happened, and it changed everything. Like, I have been an avid gamer ever since. So that's been what, nearly 25 years or so since that point. Played a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of things, and then had this weird realization a few years back that I kind of missed getting really stuck in, and then started to miss the games that I used to have and tried to dig them all out. And most of what's behind me is the result of me going through all of those games and seeing what I could pick out. Like, as an example of that PS1 era, this is my original copy of Rugrats Search for Reptar, which I was able to find, and it's probably one of the few ones from that time period that actually stayed the course and does look in good condition. Though admittedly, I do need to do a case swap because it seems the case on this one is broken. This is a game that holds a special memory in my heart as a game that I remember playing for hours and hours on end, even though I think you can complete it in like 2 hours or something like that if you really try. God knows how long I actually spent on this. So that then ended up being one of the focuses that we had when trying to collect games was, can I try and get a hold of some of those games from when I was younger that have just simply vanished? Let's go out to CEX and let's see what we can find. In CX in Motherwell, right, and I have found some absolute bangers for the PS2 that definitely fit the criteria of games which, for whatever reason, just completely disappeared for me. As you've seen from the footage, the first game that we picked up from the series of games which has totally disappeared from my collection is Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. This is the 2005 skateboarding video game developed by Neversoft and published by Activision, which is the 7th entry in the Tony Hawk series. And I believe the Xbox 360 version is now up to £38. This was the first game in the series that introduced online play for Xbox Live, but was also on PS2. And fun fact, is actually the first game that I have ever played online for, which is kind of crazy to think about now for how long ago that was. But I do remember the USB dial-up routers that you used to get, the speed touch modems. That what you had to do was you actually could put the ADSL cable out from them and directly into your PlayStation. This one only cost me just £6, which I thought was a pretty good deal. I already had the box for this, but for some reason the disc completely vanished. I have no idea where it's gone, but it has now meant that we are absolutely out of PS2 space. If you look behind me just on the camera, the shelf above this is full, and there's just a stack here. It's getting larger and larger. Definitely a good one to pick up. What other ways in which we can collect games that means that these games will have a special place in my heart moving forward? And what that then meant was trying to work out, okay, what game series did I miss when I was actually growing up? Now, my parents weren't unreasonable in this view. Like, looking back, I totally understand it, but there's a lot of games that I wasn't allowed just quite simply because of the age rating. Like, my parents were very strict on that. Even though I had a crap ton of Eminem albums that, I mean, in no way, shape, or form was that fit for my age group who are listening. But I digress. That's on my dad, to be fair. So when you then go down that avenue of games that I don't have, games that a lot of people deem as either cult classics or just straight up classics, I had a crazy amount to choose from. And we've already grabbed some of these recently for the channel that I really do hope to get some streams up of. Certainly on TikTok, and maybe if my internet situation even improves, a dual stream on here. So, you know, if you want to go drop us a follow, we are on TikTok at the Nerd Fandemic. You'll normally see us all on there talking about games, game collecting, bits of TCG, all that fun stuff. And one of those games that absolutely fits that mold is The Warriors for PS2. So The Warriors being a 2005 beat 'em up video game that was based on the 1979 film with the same name, which was developed by Rockstar Toronto and published by Rockstar Games, that ended up coming out in October of that 2005. This game's set in the gritty 1970s New York City, which follows the eponymous street gang, who are framed for the murder of a respective gang leader and must return to their home turf in Coney Island whilst being hunted by rival gangs and the police. Weirdly, I have not seen this film. I'm not great for watching films. That's maybe something that we're going to have a running theme of in the coming weeks and months, of something I want to change. And I know for a fact that this is a classic film, but it's a game that I had also never seen any of at all. When I was down in Cambridge for a wedding in the summer, I went into the CX. I had a lot of time to kill the day of the wedding when my wife was getting ready as part of the bridal party. I saw this was on the stock checker, and I was like, I want to go check this out. I want to go see the condition of this. And the condition of the game was absolutely spot on. So I just had to pick it up. Now, as I say, I have still yet to play this. So it still falls into the games that I have missed on category. One day we will change that. My backlog seems to ever increase, mostly because of me buying things that I need to actually carve out the time to play. So let us know down in the comments if this is a game you'd want to see us live stream, because I know for a fact that it would be a great time had by all. So let's now head out and see if there's any games out there that we can find that I slept on as a kid and a young teenager. Back at the PS2 section again, this is becoming a little bit of a habit. I have nowhere to put these, but I just keep on seeing ones. When I was looking through the shelves, I thought back to the bracket that we had, the very first episode of trying to figure out the greatest games of all time. And I noted that I had never ever played a Time Splitters game. So when I was scrolling through the shelves and I saw this, I couldn't help but pick this up, and this was Time Splitters 2. Time Splitters 2 being the first person shooter that was developed by Free Radical and published by Eidos in October 2002. The game's story focusing on the efforts of a space marine who seeks to recover powerful time crystals from a race of alien mutants called Time Splitters. Now, I always heard that these games are really, really good. I know there's a trilogy of them that is out for PS2, and they didn't have the first one. They may have actually had the third one. When I went back and reviewed the footage, I'm pretty sure the third one was in there. When I saw this, I was like, you know what? I'll jump on this now. We'll grab it. This seems like a series that is like probably classed as a cult classic. I know some people don't like that terminology, but it seems to be that kind of series. One I'm definitely going to check out. I'm going to need to try and find the first one though, just so that I'm not kind of playing them all completely out of order. But yeah, CEX Millwall again, that is 2 pickups in a row from the same place, which I'd already been, peeking behind the camera, I'd already been to a CEX East Kilbride for this, and I hadn't found anything of note. I traded in a couple of games that made this easier to accomplish, but yeah, no dice, but 2 for 2 in Millwall so far. There's also some things like sort of mini subset of stuff that I owned when I was younger that I just want to like give an upgrade. So like massive Pokemon nerd, I got the original Pokemon Red, which was my childhood, and the Game Boy Color ones. I remember playing the crap ton of this over and over and over again. But like most kids our age, we did not take care of stuff whatsoever. So when I had the chance to pick up a boxed copy of Red, and by pick up I mean this was given to me as a present by my wife. Best present I've ever received, by the way. Absolute cracker. Just look at the condition of this thing. It's really been looked after. We do have some boxed copies of those original couple of generations. One day we're going to go back and backfill those with the other ones. Like I'm going to try and get like Sapphire whenever I've got a copy of Ruby and a copy of Blue when I have Red. That kind of idea. But those ones certainly ain't cheap, so those ones are getting shifted further and further down the priority. The third way in which I collect video games is I just try and find stuff that looks fun. Do you know that way where you're going through an independent game store, you're going on Vintage, you're on eBay, you're in a CEX, and you see something that you just go, that cover looks interesting, or that premise sounds fun, or you quickly Google it and you're like, oh, they made that. That sounds kind of cool. I can't help but go, oh, well, I should grab that, and then maybe one day we'll get involved and play it. And it's always a good chance to dive in and see if there's maybe a new game out there that might become one of your favourites, or something that's just so bad that it is also kind of funny. And there's an enjoyment out of that, right? Like no one's going to turn that chance down. Like I actually distinctly remember playing a game that was kind of like that for the PS2, Eternal Ring, I think it was. I do have the box for that somewhere, but no disc. Surprisingly, which is not quite like me to have that, but there are a few from my younger days that have just completely vanished. That I don't really remember too much about that game, other than I didn't really like it. In fact, I think I thought at the time it was pretty naff. But there's something to be said for playing games like that, where they just look so mental that you're like, oh, I need to check this out because I need to know for myself. So how about we try and see if we can find one that's just like that fits that criteria? Let's jump out and see. So on my way back from CEX there, that's the third clip there would have been in store, but it was very quiet. You know that way when you want like a little bit of volume, so it doesn't feel like your voice is just carrying through the entire store. There was people in, but no one was really speaking, and there was no music playing at all, which normally the no music's fine, for the copyright stuff, but less so when you're trying to, have a conversation with a camera. That, and then there was some young kids in the store, so you don't want to be that guy trying to like film and stuff, so I just left it. However, we did manage to get ourselves a third game, the series that just looks fun. Now don't get me wrong, this one potentially falls into category 2, as potentially does class as one that I have slept on because it's a series I've never ever played before, but I always heard that in particular this one was a heck of a lot of fun and is meant to be a good jumping in point for this. So I thought, well, I saw it was a reasonable price on the shelf. I had a voucher that was going towards most of the stuff that we bought in this video today anyway, so I thought, why not push the boat out a little bit, and I'll cut back to being back in the room and we'll have a chat about it. So we are back inside. This was a successful trip, I must admit. All 3 pickups from the same store, and yes, as I alluded to in the footage, this is something that may have come under topic number 2, the things with which I have slept on, because as a series I've never touched any of, but I've always thought that they sounded quite fun. And I'm one for playing games that are fun. It's not exactly a hidden gem though, but I always heard that this was a good jumping in point to the series. So the game I picked up is Yakuza 0. Yakuza 0 being a 2015 action-adventure game developed by Ryuga Gotoku Studio and published by Sega, which is the 6th installment in the Yakuza series. However, crucially, it is a prequel to the original game that is set in the late 80s. The story follows Kazuma, Kiryu, and Goro Majima as they get embroiled in a conflict between various Yakuza factions. So critics thought this was pretty good. I have always heard, as I said, this series is quite good, and I have a reasonable amount of games for PS4 and PS5, but when I saw this on the shelf, I thought, do you know what, this is absolutely perfect. Plus, I actually quite like the red spine of the PS4 greatest hits. I actually think they look quite nice. I can see why people collect all of them. So yeah, I saw this. At some point, I will play this. At some point, this will be something that I no doubt enjoy. I know that certainly a few of the guys over at TNF are probably going to be quite intrigued to see what I think here. But I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised that I managed to go to just the one place and managed to tick off all 3. And as I say, a voucher paid for a chunk of it. So a pretty successful hunt all in, I think. Now that I've shown off some of the things that I try and collect, I suppose I have to kind of bring that all back to why I collect. And to be perfectly honest, it is genuinely so that I have this really, really cool collection that in like 5, 10, 15 years time I can look back on and sort of reflect on all the memories of getting this stuff, of playing the games, the hunt of trying to find them. Those kind of things are all the things that matter to me a lot, and I think that'd be really, really cool to have as a memory. I really, really like sort of reconnecting back and filling in the gaps from my childhood that for whatever reason I just missed a game. It gives you that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling inside. And in terms of like future goals, I've got a couple. I have like a list on my phone that I kind of work my way through. I guess in particular, I'd love to have a boxed copy from each generation of the Pokemon games. So I've only got a couple that is missing from that. I believe I need a copy of Black or White. I need a copy of Black or White 2. I need a boxed copy of X and Y. And I think I just need Sun or Moon because I have Ultra Moon in there behind me. And then eventually I want to go back to the first 3 gens and get a boxed copy of everything. I think that would be really, really cool. But in particular, I really want to try and play more of these games for you guys at home, either with the guys in TNF if they're multiplayer, or just single player and get them streamed. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So if you want to see more hunts, if you want to see more pickups, if you want to see more collection updates, do drop us a subscribe on the channel. Leave a comment down below the things that you've enjoyed the most from what I've been able to share with you today. And we'll catch you in the next one.